Welcome to Life with Beth and Court,
where we teach you how to live authentically and build your best life.
one step at a time.
I sound like King George with these headphones. I don't
Do you
know what he
even know
actually
what King
sounded
George
like.
sounds like?
No, but I imagined he sounded just like this.
Oh, really?
I said imagined in past tense. I imagined he sounded just like this.
So far, our round 2 is starting out very focused.
Okay, I'm focused.
So thank you for that.
3, 2, 1, focused.
What are we mic checking with today, Court?
Well, I'm going to sing it. You're going to
Well.
explain it. Ready?
Got it. Okay.
What's wrong with being? What's wrong with being? What's wrong with being confident? It's time to get the chains out. Just kidding.
Whoa.
We won't do that.
Yeah, no.
Not for this
No
episode.
chains. Thanks for playing. I know why you're singing that.
Well, tell me. Why am I?
Well, I'll tell you. It's
Well, tell me.
because everything that we're going to be talking about on today's podcast led us to being our most confident selves.
Correct.
Am I right?
You're right.
I'm actually very good at this game. It's like the only game of trivia I can win.
This is true. I do it to make you feel successful.
I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
So let's kick this thing off. Welcome back to another episode of Life with Beth and Court. I'm Beth.
I'm Court.
And today we're talking about ditching comfort and dialing in greatness.
Dun, 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 dun.
Wow, you're like very royal right now.
It's because I have the headphones on.
Yeah.
You never let me have the headphones.
Yeah, I don't.
Because I like to listen to myself talk when I have them on. So I sing and I talk about random things and I make sound effects.
Yes. So to those of you listening, I'm sorry. She wanted them for the mic check. She kept them, and I have no control over how much she's going to talk, sing, and even dance on this
Buckle in,
podcast.
babies.
All right. So the reason that we're talking about this topic today is because we are soon launching a digital course called Exceptional Life Academy. And the reason that we even created Exceptional Life Academy is because we kept finding ourselves giving the same advice to people on certain topics over and over again. And then we thought, why not teach the masses all at once about these different topics, which really come down to, on some level, self-awareness, confidence, busting through self-doubt. There's a lot of self-work in this course coming up.
I'm just nodding my head. I agree with you. You can keep going.
Okay. You don't have anything to say?
No, I'm singing songs in my head.
Okay.
Continue.
Great. Is this going to be just me on this podcast?
Perhaps.
Maybe. So that's why we created the course. And today we were thinking we would go through and kind of talk about the origins of where we picked these topics from.
Right? And really focus on the before and the after. So before, this is what we did. This is what we sounded like. This is what it looked like. And after, this is where it was at. When we talk about building your best life, you'll hear us say that a lot. This is where that comes from, because all of these things that we're going to teach you is what really transformed our life. And so they were little things and they changed little things on their own. But then when we put them all together, really, this is where living authentically and building our best life came from, because now it's a lifestyle change for us.
Yeah. And I think about, we've been watching Once Upon a Time, and I think
Gosh,
about,
I love that show.
It's a really good show. It's kind of weird, but it's good.
Kind
but
of amazing.
There's a lot of like curses and magic and stuff. And I think about, when a curse is cast and you see like this
Purple
like,
smoke.
Yeah, like there's like purple smoke and this like gust of wind and like this magical transformation. That's not what this felt like. Like,
as cool as it is.
as cool
no.
as it would be to say, like, one day, here's the day that we got confident.
Right.
It wasn't like that. We essentially had to do the hard work in identifying these different things and building resilience and building our courage and all of that in order to one day wake up and be like, wow, I feel very confident about where I am and who I am now.
And what's interesting is we noticed it in each other and other people noticed it in us. But when it's happening and there is no purple smoke in the poof, you kind of just don't even realize it's happening.
Yeah,
but
totally.
everyone else around you, they're like, oh my gosh, you have so much confidence. And how do you set boundaries? So that's when it really started to click for me. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm just
Right.
being normal. Or when people who have known you for a long amount of time in your life, that was huge, where so many people in the past year have said, you look so happy and
Yeah.
you look like you're living your best life. And I love your smile. Like those types of comments I've never had before in my life.
It's interesting. I remember the first time that my parents actually made a comment about it, and they said their comment to me was, "You seem so much calmer now." And I was like, "Huh. I didn't know I was not calm before." But it makes a lot of sense that when you're confident, you're calmer, and when you know
You have peace.
you know when you know what you want and where you're going, and you have that clarity, and you feel solid and stable and self-aware in your life, you do have peace, and you just become calmer and cooler and collected. And I was realizing this the other day. I don't even think I said this out loud. So
Oh, this shall be fun.
yeah, welcome to my brain. What I realized the other day is that since being with you, I don't feel the need to be heard as much anymore.
Ooh, say more about that.
I know it's a very odd thing to realize, but I don't feel the need to, I guess, prove myself or to be the loudest voice or to be the center of attention. Like I don't have that urge to be heard because I think I feel so heard with you.
Aww.
I know that wasn't meant to be sweet, but it just,
I get
that's
to
what
hear
it is.
lovely things and wear the headphones. This is a good day.
This is a good day. So anyway, I just realized that the other day that I feel so heard and loved and appreciated with you that I don't feel the need to get that love and acceptance and to feel heard by the rest of everybody. So I can kind of just like, calm the fuck down is probably what my parents were noticing is like, oh,
That's so
you've calmed down.
interesting.
And I know that before they used to, my dad still, he referenced this on our last phone call. When I was visiting them down in Florida, it's a really pretty setup. They've got a pool, but then like right beyond the pool is the beach and the ocean. So you can look at the ocean, but be sand free and not in water with
That is
unknown
my
things.
kind of
I know.
vacation.
So anyway, when I was down there with them though, I liked to read whilst walking around the pool. And I remember that was like so odd and alarming to my dad and stepmom because they were like, why can you never sit still? Like, why can you just relax? I was like, I am relaxing. But I was I was like in a hyperactive state. And so they're like, why can't you turn off? And so I think I've just gotten to that point where I'm like, this is it. I know what we're chasing. I know who I am. I know who you are. I know who we are. And now I've got this like peace that I can use to propel me to the next level in our lives.
Well, that actually makes a lot of sense because when you're not frantically searching for everything or you're not running on overdrive or you're not trying to meet other people's needs. So if you think about all of the pieces that were swirling before you got to that spot, of course it makes people frantic. Of course it makes them snap. Of course it makes them just in a funky mood. And because we're constantly searching for these things to, as our friend Mr. Brown would say, fill your hole.
Yeah.
That's not as weird as it sounds. But basically the analogy is we're constantly looking for things externally outside of what we immediately need to be focusing on to fill the void, to make us feel better, to
Yep.
fix it. And truthfully, it starts with us. And that's why we're doing this course, because it took us a while to figure that out. But once we started with us and we started working internally, everything from that started to flow externally. And you put that energy out there and it's a game changer.
Yeah, it's basically like untangling the mess inside allows everything to just flow freely after that.
And
So-
when you talk about peace, we ran the beta group for this course that we talk about. And one of our friends, we asked her, what would this feel like? Like if we could work through all of these things you're struggling with, what would that feel like? And she's like, I would feel joy. I would feel peace. I would feel amazing. And I love that she has been keeping us up to date through.
Yeah, she's done amazing.
She has done amazing things. And I can even tell in the way she communicates that there's peace and there's calm and there's presence. There's
Yeah.
a different way about her that I can really sense because she's sinking into who she is and really feeling confident and living through what she wanted to feel.
Yep.
Okay, we definitely don't want to spoil it for those of you that are going to be taking the course. So we're going to keep it 10,000 foot view and we're going to talk about the biggest differences we have in living our lives right now that we didn't have before. So think of the before and after, and we built the course based on what these outcomes were because we wanted them to be super specific. So before we were feeling like this, and this is how we're living our lives now, just to give you a little bit of a snapshot of what this course is going to look like for you guys.
So what is your number one difference that you see in your life?
I feel confident to advocate for what's right. And by what's right, I mean, I know what I believe and what I feel and what I think about things. And I have no problem now standing in my truth, even when it feels really uncomfortable, and also having some grace in that a little bit. So I might not be able to right in the moment say, oof, I need to say what this is, but I always come back to it. And I am getting better about saying in the moment what I believe and what I feel is okay and what's not. So that's huge because before, if we go back to the before, I would let people say whatever they wanted to say, even if it was hurtful about other people. I would just keep my mouth shut because I'm like, well, I don't want to say anything or they're going to make fun of me and I'm going to be that person. I got to a point where I was like, what if they say something bad about you? Then what? Cool. It would hurt, but are those the people you really want to associate with and be around? And so kind of learning how to unpack things and really get to the bottom of like, and then what would happen and what would be the consequence for that. So finding the confidence to stand in my truth about things I truly believe in and feel, and not taking the passive route, which is what I did before.
Yeah, I think mine is a bit of a variation of kind of the same thing as you. Like I have more confidence now in being myself and not trying to be someone else. And that means in all regards. So one of the biggest ones I think about is just my actual external fashion style. I used to be self-conscious about what people would think, or, you know, I'm supposed to be dressing like this because I'm in this type of office, or should I wear my hat forward instead of backwards? Should I not wear a hat? Like there was all these questions about what people would think if I dressed in the way that made me feel confident. And now I don't care.
Right.
Now I do care, but I care about how it makes me feel. And it turns out a backwards hat and a leather jacket makes me feel pretty confident. And so I'm going to wear it. And I don't really necessarily give value to what other people think. In turn, what I found is I've gotten a lot more compliments on my style.
Yeah.
Once
Because you're
I start
wearing it, like you're living it, you're wearing into what you believe. And that's that energy we talked about that people start to notice.
Right. So that shift in when I dress on the outside, how I feel on the inside, then they both just end up amplifying each other. So my style makes me feel more confident, and then my confidence makes me feel bold enough to wear the style that I want to wear.
Sure. I think my second one, it's kind of a 2-for-1, but this is probably the most powerful one, is not being a perfectionist and not people pleasing. And those, I can't even begin to express how important it is that I have a rein on that in my life, because I truly, truly, truly believe that would have been the death of me. And that sounds very dramatic, but the truth is you can go down such a rabbit hole and you can wear yourself down physically, you can wear yourself down mentally. So when I say it would have been the death of me, it would have been the death of me. That's so powerful for me. So this is why I believe in what we're teaching people, because if you would have told me 2 years ago that's something I could work through and I wouldn't have to feel like a perfectionist or a people pleaser, I would not have believed you for a second. But I did the work. I had the tools. I showed up and I started to really realize what was important. And it wasn't being perfect and it wasn't people pleasing. It was being there for myself and being present with myself and what I needed and what I believed about me. So I would say those two alone, that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I figured that out, because it would have driven me into the ground. And I know there are a lot of other people that struggle with that. So I'm super excited that we are able to walk them through that and be that support for them.
The cool part is that you had to struggle through that process. You had resources. We went to counseling. We, both of us, and we figured it out. But we at least have done the work of identifying, like, this is what we did to get to this point. Rather than you starting from ground zero, we can say to you, this isn't going to be an easy journey and it's not going to be point A to point B, but here are the stops along the way that you'll take that'll make it a hell of a lot easier.
And everyone's situation looks different. For some people, they might get straight from point A to point B, but for other people, it might be a little messy and you might think you mastered it and then you have to go back, or you might need support from someone. So it's just different for everyone.
Yeah. And so what we have done though is kind of laid out, we like to kind of think of it as a board game map of point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4. And
there will be stops and it will look like Candyland if I have anything to say about it.
So everyone's journey will look different, but at least we can all do it together is essentially what we're saying.
Support no matter what path you take, as long as you have people on both sides of the path that are going to help you get wherever you need to go. That's what's most important. And so not only do we get to be those supports for them, we're going to build a community of other people that have the same energy, the same spirit, the same goals, and we're going to all carry each other through it.
Yeah, because I think that was one of the most helpful things when we were down in the trenches doing the work, is having those people that we could check in with and they would check in with us when we were having a hard time. And so that's what we're hoping to create for those people who, you know, may not have those people naturally in their lives. We want to create that community together. So anyway, moving on. That was a little bit of a digression, but I thought it was important because that was part of your journey from moving on from perfectionism, was making all these stops, which ultimately led to that. So my second biggest difference is learning to set and enforce boundaries. And that made a huge difference for me because I guess somewhat perfectionism was a piece of what I was struggling with, because I never wanted anything to be less than perfect, less than excellent. And I wanted to please everyone. And so I said yes to everything. So I guess in a roundabout way, for me, it was also the people pleasing and perfectionism. And I was able to say, you know what? I actually need sleep. And so, no, I can't take on this job.
And not feeling guilty about it is the big caveat, because a lot of people can say no, but then as soon as they do, they're like, I'm going to advocate for myself, and then as soon as they do, guilt swoops in right behind, and then they're like, maybe I shouldn't have done that, maybe I should go anyway. And so being able to say no and say yes and feel really good about it, and not having guilt either way.
Yeah, because the other part of that is like you're saying, when people say no but then feel guilty about it, you'll see them set boundaries, or enforce boundaries rather, by saying sorry. And so they're like doing half the work where they're enforcing the boundary, but they're apologetic about it. And I think doing the work we did kind of helped me be unapologetically brave for myself. You know, whatever it is, instead of saying, in the past I would have been like, oh, I'm really sorry, like I wish I could go, or
because it's a fail safe, it makes you feel not guilty,
right? And so in some way apologizing, I still catch myself. I just caught myself doing it the other day. I almost apologized for not being able to take an impromptu meeting because I had a scheduled meeting.
Right.
And I literally was texting, sorry, we needed to finish that. And then I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to apologize. That was a set meeting. This other one wasn't. No need to apologize.
Well, and we catch ourselves often. We'll actually be texting or sending a message, and we'll call it out on each other too. Like, I'm just going to say sorry. And one of us will be like, well, no, we don't need to say sorry.
We're not sorry about it. So I think that all came out in this process for me. I didn't realize how often I was apologizing for putting myself first.
Yeah, that's big. My third one, and I'm not sure you're going to see this coming because it just came to me. I learned how to stop being the victim.
Oh.
Yeah, we haven't gone here yet, but I guess we're going to go there.
Say more.
Sure. So there was a space in my life where it was so easy for me to be the victim in every situation. So I'm trying to think of an example of that. And maybe I don't have a specific one, but it was just a sense of being and
everything
how I
was done to you, essentially.
Yes. And not only was everything done to me, but I had it owed to me that people would help me out. For example, I remember very specifically in my 20s that my car broke down. I didn't have money for another car. And I just thought it was okay to ask for money and not pay it back. Like, I had no intention of paying it back. Like, well, my my family, they're grown up, like they make money, like my extended family. So and so is a lawyer, like he can give me money, it's not a big deal. And so there was this really weird sense of so the difference there was, because that could be entitlement, right?
Right.
The difference there was I'm young and no one's helped me. Like I
Right.
don't have money because no one's ever helped me out. Like other friends' parents helped them out. So really it was this victim mentality instead of really saying, okay, I can take public transportation. I can carpool with people. So it was just this different mindset that I had. And I think it laced through more areas of my life than I really thought. And I always just felt like the victim and like someone needed to help me. So I guess what I'm really saying is problem solving.
Yeah.
And feeling like the only one who's going to fix the situation is you.
Right.
And that doesn't mean if something major didn't happen that I couldn't ask for help. But the difference is I would have the intention of paying it back. And that would be a last resort. And I would problem solve to see what else I could come up with. Whereas before I just felt like all of these things happened to me and no one felt bad for me. And even when I'd get sick, because I had health issues for a really long time, I really sank into that victim mentality. Don't get me wrong, I was freaking miserable because I was so sick all of the time for a long time. But instead of looking at it how I did now, of like, well, what's causing this? What food can I eat? What supplements can I take? What other kind of medicine is out there? What kind of book can I read? Instead of having that growth problem solving mindset that I have now, it was just, well, this is what's happening to me. And it sucks and there's nothing I can do about it. So I think that's probably one of the biggest ones, maybe even bigger than perfectionism and people pleasing. I would say those were more 911.
Right.
Like those were on fire. But I think the victim mentality and lack of problem solving would have been the slow kill for me.
The chronic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Because that's like when you shift that mindset, you shift how you live your life.
For sure. And I notice it. Like I'll do something and I'll have this flashback of this is what you would have done in this situation back then. And it wasn't until those popped into my head so many times that I realized it wasn't just a situation. It was my mindset and my lifestyle was the victim mentality.
Interesting.
I know. I didn't see that coming.
We're both just revealing all sorts of things for the first time on here.
Yeah. And I guess, so to put that back to our course, there are the intended outcomes that we're planning for because we know what you're going to start with and what's going to happen on the other side. But there are these things that come to the surface that you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that I was stronger in this area. I didn't even realize this is what I was capable of. So while there's very specific pinpointed things that we want you to take away from this, everyone's journey is their own. And there's also going to be these bigger outcomes too.
Yeah. Speaking of bigger outcomes,
Oh boy.
my third and final outcome, the biggest difference that I've seen is that I have learned to kind of twofold, remove the toxic from my life and live more aligned. And so the reason I say that's kind of twofold and it's, two sides of the same sword is when I realized what was toxic for me, I started cutting it out and instead filling my life with what my top value showed that I needed in my life to feel the way I wanted to feel.
Right.
And so I made several changes, not only in my lifestyle, my actual physical lifestyle, the foods we're eating, the exercise we're doing, etc. I've also shifted in my career. I've shifted in relationships. I've shifted in a lot of different areas. And it's all based on what's good for me, what's not good for me. Here's something interesting that I heard once. You'll hear people say sometimes like so-and-so is toxic. They'll say someone is a toxic person. And I actually heard this from Chalene Johnson. She said, people are not toxic in their entirety. Someone may be toxic to you, but they're not toxic to everybody. And I thought that was a really cool distinction because, first of all, you and I have talked about this, that one of the things that I'm kind of growing into is letting go of negative energy. And part of that is realizing people are doing the best they can with what they have. And this person may trigger me, they don't trigger everyone. And while this person may have had their faults or may have done something a way I wouldn't have done it, it doesn't mean they're a bad person. It's not black and white. It's not 100%. They're not either a good person or a bad person. We are all humans, and we all have good qualities, and we all have qualities that, leave something to be desired. But it doesn't mean that they're a bad human. And so I just think that concept is really interesting that Chalene introduced, that people aren't toxic. It's just that someone or something may be toxic to you.
And I think that all just comes back to the guilt of it, right? So you can say, this is not a good situation for me. This is not a healthy situation. And I don't want to spoil the details, but we're not basically telling you to go through and just cut everything out of your life. There are definitely ways to have conversations and explore if that's really something that needs to happen. But I think, to play off of what you said, until we were on the other side of this journey, I didn't know what was toxic.
Right. Totally.
I couldn't identify it because it was just the norm. But then as I started to grow in all of these other areas that we talk about in the course, and I really started to just change and grow and look at things through a new lens, it's like those things immediately that I couldn't see for years and years immediately popped up as red flags. And so I would be like, okay, what does this red flag mean? Like, what do I need to do? How do I need to examine it? So I think, just to speak to the bigger picture, one of the awesome outcomes of this course is, as you're starting to build a more aligned life, a more authentic life, these things that you couldn't see before start to come to the surface.
We've obviously both grown a tremendous amount from how we were living life before to how we're living life now. It's taken incremental steps, but it's made a huge, huge difference in our lives.
I want to put a disclaimer in, just in case anyone's wondering this. These changes have nothing to do with our relationship. While we bring the best out in each other and we do encourage each other to be our best selves, all of the work we had to do was done individually at different times, in different stages, in different phases. And really, as one person would grow through something, we would have the conversation and talk through it and support each other through. So I just wanted to put that out there, because I could see people being like, well, yeah, when you have someone in a relationship and you're on this growth journey together, we're both growth-minded people and we support each other, but this all happened very differently at different times in our very own way. So I want you guys to keep that in mind as you're thinking, well, is this course for me, and how did those changes happen for them?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, all the topics are individual anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what I mean.
Yeah. You can't, it's not something that it's like, well, you tell me what you think my values are or whatever. It's very much so individual work that you then come together for community support. So
And
that's a good distinction.
I would even argue that I do think couples or friends, anyone that you're close with, like if someone wanted to take this with you, it would be a different journey and a different process for both of you. But then there is this understanding. You both are looking through the same lens of what we're teaching. And even though you might come out with different things from it, I think it's super powerful and impactful for people to do this that are in close proximity together, because then you both are looking through that common lens.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing like when we took our community listens or when we went to the different seminars for work and whatnot. It just gives you a shared language to use.
Yes, common language. Thank
Right.
you. That's
So
exactly what I was thinking.
That's the whole point, is that if you go through this together, it's not that you would help each other with the answers. It's that you now have a shared language
Yes.
to express what you're feeling, to express what you're going through, and to express kind of the transformations you're thinking about and where you are emotionally.
For sure.
So we hope that this has been helpful for you. Just kind of the overarching outcomes that we've noticed in our lives from how we used to live before to how we're living now. We certainly feel like we're on a really good path to building our best life, and we want to bring you along with. So we have created the Exceptional Life Academy, and we'll be rolling that bad boy out in March 2020. And as we always say, take what's helpful, leave the rest. And until next Saturday, my friends, keep building your best life.
Bye, guys.
Also, this feels very weird without the headphones on.
I know. I only get them once in a while on special occasion because I like the way I sound too much, and I can't have them because I just talk and listen to myself and sing songs.
You've never given such an accurate description before.
Usually you describe me.
Now, that is a good segue, though, because that was
It
a
is.
very self-aware statement that you just made. And so,
That I like to hear myself talk.
I mean, there comes a point in life when you have to start self-identifying your
Conceitedness?
tendencies. No.
Oh, okay.
So let's get on with it, shall we?
Shall we? Yes. Yes, we shall. I'm very tired.
Yes, might not go well. Welcome back to another episode of Life with Beth and Court. I'm Beth. Oh my God.
Okay. I'm ready.
Well, gosh, Courtney Nicole, I'm so happy you asked that.
I'm happy I asked you that too.
Are you talking because you can hear yourself?
Yeah, I love it so much.